You will smile. Her Grace is not in the house, your Grace, nor her trunks. The Duke of Westmarch finished the sentence he was writing before he looked up. He would remember that afterward for years, that he had finished the sentence. Say that again, Mrs. Dunnage. The Duchess went at 7 with the Ledgmore carrier, said his housekeeper, and her voice was flat in a way he had never heard from her in 9 years. She left these. She set them on the blotter, the household keys on their ring. The household books, ruled and balanced to the farthing, closed on a marker at yesterday's date. The Morocco cases with the Westmarch pearls and the Westmarch garnets, and the little diamond cross he had given her at Christmas because his secretary had reminded him that it was Christmas. Hollis Arden looked at them for some while. There is no letter. No, your Grace, none at all. None at all, your Grace. He waited to feel something and nothing came, and he took that for proof that the situation was manageable. She will be at her aunt's, he said. Thank you, that will do. He worked until 2 in the morning, because there was a drainage bill and a dispute over the Netherfold tithers, and because he had been managing this estate since he was 24, and it did not manage itself. Somewhere in the small hours it occurred to him that he did not know his wife's aunt's name. He had married Honora Liesel 11 months earlier. It had been, everyone agreed, a sensible thing. She was 26 and the daughter of a Ledgmore antiquary who had spent his life and most of his money on parish registers, and she had no fortune and no connections and a great deal of quiet competence, and his aunt had put her forward with the words, "She will not trouble you." He had thought that an excellent recommendation. He had wanted a duchess who would run a house and open a flower show and not require anything of him, because he had watched his father require a great deal of his mother and had promised himself he would not be that man. He had been a different man instead. It had not once occurred to him that there might be more than 2 kinds. On the 3rd day he expected her back, and she did not come. On the 4th day the house began, very quietly, to go wrong. Nothing dramatic. The morning room fire was not lit, because it turned out that nobody had ever ordered it lit. The Duchess had done it, walking through at 6:30. The servants' dinner ran late. A letter came from the vicar about the Michaelmas subscription addressed to Her Grace, and nobody knew what to do with it. Mrs. Dunnage came for decisions 3 times before noon, and on the 3rd occasion Hollis said, with some asperity, "Surely you can settle of laundry soap without me," and Mrs. Dunnage said, "Yes, your Grace. Her Grace never made me ask twice for anything either," and went out. On the 6th day he rode to the Netherfold farms because it was quarter day. Old Wetherall came out to hold his horse, as he had done for 30 years, and looked past him down the lane. "Her Grace not with you, your Grace. She is from home." "Ah." The old man's face did a small disappointed thing. "Only she comes Tuesdays, reads me my boy's letters out of Canada, and writes back what I tell her, word for word, mind, she don't tidy it. Been 8 months of Tuesdays." He rubbed his jaw. "I'll not know what he says now till the curate's free of a Sunday, and the curate tidies it something dreadful." Hollis rode home the long way. 8 months of Tuesdays he had not known. He had been in the house on a great many of those Tuesdays in his study, with the door shut, working. He sent for Petherick that evening and asked his steward, straight out, what the Duchess had been doing with her days, and Petherick, who was 60 and afraid of nothing on this earth, told him, and it took 40 minutes. The school in the old tithe barn, 3 mornings a week. The subscription for the Soden family after the fire, the lying in fund, the Tuesday letters, which were not only Wetherall's. The rewriting of the whole tenancy repair schedule, which Petherick had submitted to the Duke in February with Her Grace's name upon it, and which the Duke had approved without reading, and which had saved the estate £200. And the almshouse, Petherick said, "What of it?" "The roof, your Grace. Her Grace raised it with you in April, and again in June, and again in August. You said you would look into it." "I did look into it." "Yes, your Grace," said Petherick. "You looked into it in April." His sister came on the 9th day, uninvited, from 12 miles off, and found him at breakfast. "So it is true," said Lady Sabina, drawing off her gloves. "Hollis, where is she?" "With relations, I imagine." "You imagine." Sabina sat down heavily. "Do you know, when Aunt Georgiana produced her, I thought, poor creature, he will bore her into her grave." And then I came here at Easter, and she had the whole of it in her 2 hands, and you spoke to her 4 times in 3 days, and one of those was to correct her upon the date of the Ghent Treaty in front of 9 people. She was mistaken. She was not mistaken, Hollis, she was right, and she let you be wrong in public, because she thought it would embarrass you to be put down at your own table. I looked it up afterward in your own library, out of temper. His sister's mouth was unsteady. And I said nothing either, so I am not here to be a judge. I am here because I did nothing and I am ashamed, and because I want to know where she is, and you cannot tell me. Hollis set down his cup. Nor can I, he said. He went up to her rooms that afternoon for the first time since she had gone. They were bare-in-the-way rooms are when a person has taken only what she brought. The gowns he had paid for were hanging in the presses. Her own worn boots were gone. On the little writing table there was a commonplace book, and he opened it because he had lost the right to be delicate. Recipes. A column of accounts for the school. 2 pages of parish notes in her father's hand that she had copied out to keep, and at the back, headed simply ask him a list. Whether Westmarch was his mother's family or his father's. Whether he liked the yellow room or only tolerated it. What the initials on the little seal in his study stand for. Whether he minded very much about his brother, or whether one does not ask. What he is afraid of. Whether he would rather I did not sit with him after dinner. He has never said. I cannot tell whether it is company or an intrusion, and I have not the courage to ask outright, and it is nearly a year, and I think perhaps that is my answer. The last entry was in April. There was nothing after it, and the rest of the book was blank, and the Duke of Westmarch sat down on his wife's stripped bed with the thing open on his knees and discovered what he had been unable to feel for 9 days. It took him a fortnight to find her, and he found her through her father. The bookseller at Saltmer, who had bought the Ledgmore Library 4 years ago, had wanted the catalogue finished, and had wanted it finished by somebody who could read a 14th-century hand, and there was precisely one such person in England who would work for 30 shillings a week. He did not send, he went. The shop was up 3 steps off a street that smelled of tar and herring, and she was at the back of it on a stool with her sleeves pinned and a lamp at her elbow. And when the bell went she looked up and her face did not change at all, which he found he could hardly bear. Your Grace, Honora, you should not have come in this coat, she said. You will be talked of in the town by dinner. He had prepared a speech in the chaise. He heard himself abandon it. You left no letter. No. Why? She set down her pen and folded her hands, and he saw that they were ink-stained and chapped, and that she was not sorry about it. Because a letter is a conversation, she said, and we have never had one. I could not write 4 pages to a man who has never answered a note of mine in his life and pretend it was the natural close of something. There was nothing to close. I did not leave you in anger, Hollis. I left because in 11 months I had made myself indispensable to your house, your tenants, your steward, and your books, and not to you. And I found that I could bear anything except becoming a very useful piece of furniture that occasionally speaks. I never meant. I know, said his wife. That is the whole of it. You never meant. There is no villain in this. You were not cruel to me once. You were absent from a room you were standing in, and there is no complaint a woman can make of that which does not sound like ingratitude. Come home. No. He had not, in 14 years as Duke of Westmarch, been told no by anybody, and he discovered that his first instinct was to reach for the several instruments by which a man in his position makes no into yes, and that using any one of them would prove her right forever. So he stood in a bookseller's back room with his hat in his hand and said, Then may I write? Honora looked at him for a long moment. You may write, she said. I do not undertake to answer. He wrote every week. He wrote badly at first, in the stiff sentences of a man dictating to a land agent, and then gradually otherwise. He answered the list. He had copied it out and he went down it in order, one to a letter, because he could think of no other honest way to begin. Westmarch had come through his mother, and she had hated it. The yellow room he did mind, his father had died in it. The initials on the seal were his brother's Edmund, who had gone into the water at Barrow Sands when Hollis was 9 and Edmund 11. And no, one might ask, one had simply never been asked. What he was afraid of took 3 drafts and went as follows, that he was his father, that he had married her to avoid finding out, and that in avoiding it he had done the thing exactly. And to the last question he wrote, "I did not know you were waiting for permission. I have gone back over every evening of 11 months, and I can find 9 occasions when you sat down after dinner, and I did not look up. And I can tell you now that on all 9, I was glad you were there and thought it unnecessary to say so. Because I have been taught that a man does not say such things. I no longer believe that. It is not restraint, it is only cowardice with good tailoring." She answered in the 5th week, 2 lines. "It was the yellow room I always suspected. Do not sit in it." In the 6th week, 4 lines. In the 9th, a page. Meanwhile he did the other work, and he did not write to her about any of it, because he had understood by then that a man who reports his own repentance is asking to be paid for it. The almshouse roof was stripped and relayed before the frosts. He went to the tithe barn on a Wednesday morning and found 11 pupils and a curate's wife doing her best, and he endowed a schoolmistress and a stove. He learned the Tuesday letters. He was very bad at them. Wetherall told him so at length, and said her Grace never tidied, and the Duke tidied worse than the curate, and Hollis Arden sat in a labourer's kitchen, and was corrected on his own composition by a man of 80, and took the correction and came back the following Tuesday. By spring there were 14 names on the Tuesday list, and he knew every one of them, and Petherick had begun bringing him the repair schedule unapproved, on the grounds that his Grace now read things. At midsummer he went back to Saltmere. She was on the same stool. The catalogue was finished. The shelves behind her were labelled in her hand. The lamp was the same. "You have not come with the chaise," she said. "I came on the mail. I did not want you to feel a carriage in the street." Honora Arden put down her pen, and this time her face did change, and he saw what a fortnight in a bookshop had cost her and what 9 months had cost her after it. "Say it, then," she said. "You have written 31 letters and not once asked." "No." "I have been earning the right to ask, and I do not know whether I have it, and there is nobody left who will tell me but you." He came no nearer. "Honora, I am not asking you to come back to Westmarch. Westmarch does not need you," which is a sentence I could not have written a year ago and which is now true, because you built it so that it does not, and then I finished the work. I am asking whether you will have me. That is a different question, and I have never in my life asked it of anybody. The shop bell rang. Somebody wanted an atlas. Neither of them moved. "Ask it properly," she said unsteadily. So the Duke of Westmarch, in a bookseller's back room in a town that smelled of tar, went down on one knee on a floor that had not been swept since Easter and asked his own wife whether she would consider marrying him, and she said, "Yes, and get up, you absurd man, the boy is watching," and he did not get up for some while. They went home in September by the mail, because she wanted to see the country slowly. He was not transformed. He was a reserved man to the end of his days, and there were evenings when he worked too late and mornings when he forgot the flower show, and she told him so directly, and he mended it, which was the whole of the difference and was everything. But he never again let a Tuesday pass without her. And he never sat in the yellow room, and on the last page of the little commonplace book, under the list headed "Ask him," there is a second list in a different hand, dated the following spring, headed "Ask her," and it runs to 4 pages, and every question on it is answered.